This is the moment 40-year-old Abraham Shakespeare won $30 million after playing the lottery, but little did he know that his life would be cut short because of this. In 2006, while Abraham worked his shift as a truck driver in Florida, he bought a lottery ticket, and a few days later, he finds out he won $30 million. Abraham went from struggling to becoming the richest man in his neighborhood. But with that came a lot of issues. People in the town began finding out about his money, and they would literally go to his house and ask him for money. But this was the thing, Abraham was too generous, and it was said that in total, he gave away about $1 million to his friends, family, and even strangers. Eventually, he got fed up and realized that he needed to better manage his finances. So in 2008, he meets a woman named Dee Moore, who claimed that she could help him protect and manage his money. Somehow, someway, Dee convinced Abraham to give her access and authority of his bank accounts, his assets, and even convinced him to sign over his $1 million home. By April 2009, Abraham mysteriously disappeared, and everything led back to Dee. When investigators questioned her, she told them that Abraham was alive, and to prove that, she secretly got Abraham's friend, Gregory Smith, to call Abraham's mother and pretend to be him. Not only that, but Abraham's friends and family began receiving text messages from his phone, reassuring them that he was still alive, but that he was tired of people asking him for money, so he left to live a quiet life far away. But here's the twist. It turns out that Abraham never learned to properly read or write, so there was no way that these messages were written by Abraham. Investigators quickly caught on that Dee was behind this, and after learning that Gregory was paid by Dee to pretend to be Abraham, investigators got him to work with them and find out where Abraham was. So then Gregory met with Dee and wore a hidden mic, and Dee admitted that Abraham was deceased and that she knew where his body was buried. Investigators dug up Dee's backyard and found Abraham's body buried under a concrete slab, and it was revealed that his cause of death was 2 gunshots to his chest. Investigators believe that Dee took Abraham's life after he realized that she was stealing his money. Dee was arrested and convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Now, despite investigators having all this evidence against her, she still claims till this day that she's innocent and that someone else took his life, but this other person she keeps mentioning doesn't exist.
This man is one of the worst pedophiles in world history, and just today he was murdered in prison. So I talked about this guy years ago. This is Ian Watkins. He was the ex-lead singer of the band Lost Prophets, and Ian was arrested in 2012 after a search warrant was executed on his home, and authorities found some extremely disturbing things. Ian, who was the frontman for the band Lost Prophets at the time, was a known name in the music world, but he had been using that power and that fame to convince fans of his and acquaintances of his to give him access to their babies. Yes, I'm not talking toddlers, I'm talking about babies, and some of the graphic chats between Ian and one of his lovers and accomplices talking about abusing her own baby are some of the most disturbing things I've ever read in my life. Truly, I've talked about this guy a lot. When it comes to pedos and depravity, this guy is one of the worst of the worst. Or should I say, was. And that's because this morning in England, prison officials at the prison where Ian was being held found him lying in a pool of blood. Another inmate had sprung on the opportunity when the jail cell doors were unlocked this morning and had essentially rushed at Ian in his cell and slit his throat. According to those who witnessed what happened, there was blood everywhere. It was an absolutely horrific scene, with sirens and flashing lights, and obviously Ian covered in his own blood on the floor. But this is just a horrific end to an absolutely horrific story. I've already done a 3-part series if you want to go back and listen to what I had to say about Ian. But let me just say this, the devil gained another soldier today. This dude was the purest form of evil that you could possibly imagine.
These are some morbid facts about Disney World. Disney's first water park, called River Country, closed permanently in 2001 after an 11-year-old boy died from a brain-eating parasite he got in the lake. The park still lies completely abandoned to this day. The actor who used to play Gaston at Disney World Orlando accidentally killed himself by attempting to shoot fireworks off his head. Disney World is one of the most popular places on Earth for scattering ashes. It happens so frequently that employees have a special code word to report it for cleanup. A study conducted in 2016 concluded that the Thunder Mountain Railroad reliably helps people pass kidney stones. In In 2010, a restaurant manager at Disneyland Paris took his own life after working a shift. Before doing so, he left a note on the wall that translated to, "I don't want to go back to Mickey ever again."
Here are some terrifying things about Disney that you didn't know about. Number 1. Disney's secret underground tunnels. You heard me right. Right beneath the Disney parks is a vast network of tunnels. These tunnels are used by the workers to get around the park easier and faster. But some kids have accidentally found these tunnels and actually gotten lost down there. Number 2. Spreading ashes around the park. It is actually a pretty common occurrence that Disney park visitors will spread the ashes of their loved ones around the Disney parks. But the creepiest part is the most common place people spread the ashes is in the Haunted Mansion ride, which has led the ride to actually become very haunted. So haunted actually that thousands of people every year claim to see this same ghost boy at the end of the ride crying for his mom.
Gruesome Facts You Didn't Know, Part 112. If you ever have kidney stones, simply take a ride on Thunder Mountain at Disney. In 2016, researchers took a model kidney on the ride to see if this rumor was actually true. They found that sitting in the back seat of the coaster would pass kidney stones 64% of the time. Sitting in the front, only about 17% of the time. This photo from the early 1900s shows two boys who were exposed to the same smallpox source. One was vaccinated, one wasn't. In 2007, at the age of only 38, Mark Bamber passed away from heart failure. To accommodate his 700+ pound body, a special mahogany casket was made, which was nearly 8 feet long and 30 inches deep. At the time, there was no hearses that could accommodate a casket that large, so it had to be pulled by horse.
This is the only way to survive a bee attack. Bees will protect their hive and will even sting you if you just walk by. And wearing dark clothing only attracts them even more. So if you're being swarmed by a group of bees, whatever you do, don't panic. If you scream and run away, it will only provoke them even more. You have to stay calm and find a dark place. The lack of proper lighting will throw the bees off and they'll leave you alone. Stay safe, everyone.
They don't do anything with the old fairies at Disney. They just sit in a graveyard and they rot. Just like many other parts of Disney, when they decide they're done with it, they are discarded forever. But sometimes they're working on other projects or they just don't want to put the budget in to tear it all down or repurpose it, so they just let it sit. They're located in this hidden storage unit by Bay Lake that very few people have actually seen. Some of these boats are repurposed and then others are left abandoned, hidden from the guests. Beachcomber Island is located in the Seven Seas Lagoon. It's near the Polynesian Resort. And Disney had installed this hidden underwater wave machine to create surfable waves for the resort guests. However, it never worked quite as planned and they left it abandoned, but it still remains under the water. Seven Seas Lagoon was an accidental man-made lake. They had planned on building on the land, but the soil wasn't stable enough, so they had to leave it be. So instead, they dug out the area and created the lagoon to enhance the grand entrance to Magic Kingdom. And rumors persist that the old construction equipment and roadways are still buried underneath the water. Come over here for more scary videos.
Disney really committed one of the wildest forms of gaslighting. I don't ever want it to be forgotten. It all started in a nature documentary from 1958. It was called White Wilderness. It even won an Academy Award. Now, not so fun fact, a lot of nature documentaries are misleading or just straight up fake. I mean, they kinda have to be. Because one thing about nature, she don't give a f about your happy ending. Imagine spending a full year documenting the life of a baby elephant just for a pack of hyenas to control all delete it all in 30 seconds. So yeah, docs cap a lot, but none did it as hard as this one right here. This is a lemming, and I feel like half of y'all already know where this is going. The most infamous part of the Disney documentary was a scene where the lemmings all decided to self-log out of life by jumping off a cliff. And for years, that's the rep they got for mass unalivings for seemingly no reason. Except, it was fake. All of it. First they filmed a bunch of lemmings on a turntable with snow on it. Then proceeded to chase them off a cliff, film it, and then said the lemmings did it to themselves. The thing is, lemmings actually will yeet themselves off cliffs, but they only do it because they can swim and they're looking for a less crowded area. Disney had us thinking they were offing themselves in groups. Even the dictionary done lied on them. Moral of this video? It would be Disney.
This woman poisoned her ex-boyfriend's mother and then tried to frame him. In July 2015, 23-year-old Caitlin Conley poisoned Mary Yoder with colchicine. Caitlin was a receptionist at Mary's chiropractor firm, and she got this position from her son Adam when they started dating. Adam and Caitlin had a very on and off relationship, and when he no longer wanted anything to do with her, that's when she decided to get revenge. On this day, Mary suddenly felt sick while at the office and decided to go home to get some rest. She told her husband that she believed that she had a stomach bug, so she tried to sleep it off. But the next morning, she went to the hospital and went into cardiac arrest and then passed away. After an autopsy was done, it was clear that Mary was poisoned. They found that she had lethal amounts of colchicine in her system, which this medicine is only used for patients who have joint inflammation. After a few months, investigators received an anonymous letter that pointed the finger to Mary's son, Adam. And that letter mentioned that a bottle of colchicine could be found in Adam's car, which investigators actually found when they searched his car. But they believe that someone was framing Adam, and when they interviewed his ex-girlfriend Caitlin, she admitted to writing the letter. Investigators were able to track the prepaid gift card that she used to purchase the colchicine, and her DNA was also found on the bottle. On November 6, 2017, Caitlin was found guilty of first-degree manslaughter and was sentenced to 23 years in prison.
Scary stories about Disneyland, except this one there's actual proof. One time a guy went to Disneyland and was waiting to ride the roller coaster on Space Mountain. He was standing in line when a guy with red hair came up to him and started talking to him. He seemed nice, but he was a little bit odd. But the thing is, when the ride was over, this red-haired man literally vanished into thin air. The guest reported this incident and was told that he was alone the entire time. This guest might have just encountered a ghost people know as Mr. One Way. Rumor has it that he's the ghost of a man who passed away while on the ride in the 1970s. He always vanishes right before the ride is over, and he likes to talk to people who are riding the roller coaster alone. People have also reported seeing him in the cast member locker rooms. Follow if you want a part 2 because there's so many ghost stories about Disneyland.
This woman cut babies out of pregnant women's stomachs, killed the mothers, sold the organs, and then sold the babies for $14,000. You're looking right now at the face of the literal devil. This woman's name is La Diabla, and she was recently arrested based on United States intelligence reports. Her real name is Martha Alicia Mendez Aguiar, and she was the leader of this organ harvesting baby trafficking network that was associated with the CJNG, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, one of the most powerful cartels in Mexico and on Earth. So according to reporting, this woman La Diabla and the associated people in her network, they would lure pregnant women out to remote, sometimes abandoned locations in Mexico, and once the women were there, they would be taken by force. I don't know exactly what happened there. Maybe they were drugged, maybe something else happened. But eventually those pregnant women would be laid down on some sort of a flat surface, and the individuals from this cartel would then cut the babies out of these pregnant women's stomachs after performing illegal C-sections on them. And then after the pregnant woman was dead, this woman, La Diabla, and her friends would cut the organs out of her body and sell them on the black market. Now, these babies reportedly went for up to 250,000 pesos, or around 14,000 US dollars. And some of these babies actually ended up being sold to people here in America. Now, reporting on what I report on all the time, I don't even want to think about what these babies could have been used for, or what kind of sick individuals would have purchased a baby from somebody like this. I mean, if you're associating with someone like La Diabla, you're probably not a good person in the first place. And it's just such a chilling thought to me. What happened to those babies that were removed from their mother's stomachs? In my opinion, they should continue arresting people. I don't know why in stories like this, they'll usually arrest somebody like La Diabla, but then the people who purchased the babies will never be identified, never charged with any crime. I say in a case like this, they aggressively pursue justice and aggressively hunt down each and every one of the people who purchased a baby from a woman like this or her organization. If you want to join me on my journey to expose child predators like this, please consider checking out my show, The Conspiracy Files. You can subscribe on YouTube, or the show is available on all streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Disturbing facts about Disney, which may or may not ruin your childhood. Part 1. If you've ever been to Disney, you may have been on this ride, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. But there's an extremely disturbing story behind this ride. The ride appears to be one of the most kid-friendly in the entire park. You go on the little cart, you see the creatures and all the amazing things. However, halfway through the ride, things change, when they make it look like you're having a head-on collision with a train. The ride then quickly shifts from a pretty nice ride to a scary one. However, normally you probably wouldn't notice any difference, it's just a bit noisier and darker. The true reason behind this will terrify you. The head-on collision with the train represents that you are dying, and you then get transported to hell. Hence why there are demons and lots of screams and loud noises. It shows that things aren't always what they seem, and Disneyland isn't solely a kid-friendly place.
Dark things Disney doesn't want you to know, part 3. So today I'm going to be talking about the mysterious case of Deborah Gale Stone, aka Debbie Stone. Debbie Stone was an 18-year-old hostess at Disney. She was a hostess for the ride America Sings, which was a musical performance. This was a new attraction, and basically you'd be sitting in a theater facing the stage, and after every act, the theater would rotate. In 1974, during the last performance of the night, Debbie got caught between the rotating wall and the stationary stage wall. She was instantly crushed to death. The scary part is that the audience heard her screams but thought that it was part of the show. Now, the big mystery is, how did she get caught in the first place? Some say that she fell between the two walls, others say that she was trying to jump from one stage to another and then got caught, and other people think that she was pushed. On that day, Debbie had just gotten engaged and was super excited and was showing all her coworkers her ring. Apparently one of them was really jealous. But to this day, we sadly still don't know what truly happened to Debbie. Make sure to like for part 4.
This photo is of the most dangerous man on earth, the Cincinnati Crawler. This actual photo was captured by the family back in 1974 after he had entered their home. This just gets 100 times crazier, so stick with me. In 1974, the Johnson family lived in Cincinnati. They had a nice house in the middle of the countryside. Not much went on here, it was just a very quiet, homely neighborhood. But shortly after this, some very strange things started happening. Their 14-year-old daughter would claim repeatedly she would see these eyes staring at her from outside of her window, the dead of night, peering in, staring at her. Along with most nights, the sounds of banging and footsteps, which the family just thought was rats, but it definitely wasn't rats. Until one night when their youngest son was laying in bed, ready to go to sleep. Now, every evening, the family dog would come in and sleep with this young boy. He'd jump up onto the bed and sleep. But this one night, the son felt this dog jump up onto his bed. He went down to pet it, and it definitely was not the dog. That's when he spotted this guy, like 6'7" tall man, standing at the end of his bed. After everybody spotted him, the man ran out of the house and was never seen again. No one knows what happened to this man, who is he, and what was he trying to do.
This mother murdered her 3 kids during a psychosis episode. On January 24th, 2023, 32-year-old Lindsay Clancy took the life of her 5-year-old daughter Cora, 3-year-old son Dawson, and 7-month-old baby Callan. On this day, at 4:53 p.m., Lindsay asked her husband Patrick to pick up some dinner at a restaurant not too far from the house. About an hour later, Patrick returned home and noticed that there was absolute silence. He called for Lindsay's name, and after no response, he went into the bedroom and noticed that the window was open. Lindsay had jumped out the window in an attempt to take her own life, but she was still alive. This is where things get really sad. Patrick went to the basement and found all 3 kids with exercise cords around their necks. Both Cora and Dawson passed away in the hospital, but baby Callan passed away 3 days later due to his injuries. Lindsay's defense attorney claims that she was suffering from postpartum psychosis, which led her to break from reality and murder her children. But the state attorney argues that these killings were premeditated and that Lindsay sent her husband to get food on purpose so that she can commit these crimes. However, Dr. Caney, who is a board member of Postpartum Support International, clarified that women can completely break with reality during violent episodes. She also said that women who are a few weeks postpartum should be aware of the symptoms of psychosis, which is usually hallucinating. Lindsay was charged with 2 counts of murder, 3 counts of strangulation and assault, and battery with a deadly weapon. And get this, she's currently paralyzed from the waist down after jumping out the
How humans would look if we could survive car crashes. Say goodbye to them good looks because we would not be the best looking things in the world. We would have no nose bone to avoid it breaking and your nose bone going up into your brain. Our skulls would be 3 times as thick to protect our brains. We would have ribs coming straight up to our heads to avoid breaking our necks in a collision. We would have an extra joint between our ankle and our knee bone to avoid snapping our legs. Our internal organs would be protected by extra ribs and thicker layers of muscle. And we would have extra bones covering all of our joints.
This woman's execution date has been set 3 decades after she killed her classmate and carved a pentagram onto her chest and took away a part of her skull. In January 1995, Colleen Slemmer, a Knoxville Job Corps student, was lured into a remote area of the University of Tennessee agricultural campus. The person who did this was 18-year-old Krista Pike, and her then boyfriend then brutally beat and stabbed Colleen to death. They carved a pentagram into Colleen's chest, and then Pike took a piece of Colleen's skull as a souvenir. In 1996, 18-year-old Pike was convicted of murder and conspiracy to commit murder, and she was sentenced to death. Since her conviction, Pike has argued that she endured brutal physical and SA as a child and suffered from severe mental illness at the time of the murder. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and PTSD years after her arrest, and advocates say that since receiving treatment, she has become, quote, a thoughtful woman with deep remorse. A psychologist also previously said that she believed Pike was detached from reality at the time of the crime. But she still committed this murder. And now, 30 years later, the Tennessee Supreme Court has set an execution date for Pike, who is the only woman on death row in Tennessee. Krista Pike is scheduled to be executed on September 30th, 2026. There were others involved in the crime as well. Pike's boyfriend, then 17-year-old Tadaryl Shipp, has been sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole for his role in the murder, and he will be eligible for parole next year. Pike's friend, then 18-year-old Shadala Peterson, was also reportedly involved in the murder. She turned state's witness and received a 6-year probationary sentence after pleading guilty to accessory after the fact. Pike's execution has been controversial, but we need to remember the victim here. Colleen was just getting her life started when she was brutally murdered for no reason. Rest in peace, Colleen.
This abandoned dark ride was completely submerged underwater for 10 years and left alone. Let's talk about it. Because if I have to be traumatized, so do you. Everything you're seeing in this video, by the way, was completely submerged. Yes, for 10 years. The 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea ride ran from 1971 to 1994. And it was a submarine ride. You would get in and you were completely submerged and you would look through these portholes and look at these horrors. Like the giant squid. This horrible octopus thing. And the worst is this absolutely massive serpent. Who I hate with a passion. He is my biggest op. The 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea closed in 1994 at Disney World, but the animatronics stayed abandoned underwater in complete darkness until the lagoon was drained in 2004. All were severely water damaged and unusable. They were completely under there. Oh my god. Like, you could see the water line of it up there, where the water was completely up there for 10 years, and all of these animatronics just rotted. This picture is the worst, but it's also my favorite because it scares me the worst. You can see the tracks, the 2 different giant squids on either side where the ride would go. This is I don't even want to look at it anymore. Squid shrouded in complete darkness. This is sick. I know it was completely abandoned during that time, so they didn't have the cleaners, but imagine being a cleaner that had to go in there with all of those abandoned animatronics. Oh my god. This photo of the serpent's tail, which the serpent's like 50 feet long, by the way. This is just disgusting. Close up of the tail. Why did I take this one? So no head? This is when it was operational. I'm going to show you a video right now of when it was operational. Let me know what you're thinking, and does this horrify you to think about? Because it freaks me out so bad.
The fact that unicorns are a mythical creature, but those actually exist, will never make sense to me. Meet the narwhal. It's a species of toothed whale that you can only find in the North Arctic waters. And they are really big. They get up to 3,500 pounds and 18 feet long. And that does not include the 10-foot javelin sticking out of their head, which, by the way, is actually a tooth, or a tusk. Kind of like an elephant. In fact, 1% of narwhals actually grow 2 of them. However, unlike any other creature on Earth, the narwhal's tusks are inside out. In other words, their nerves are on the outside of the tooth. Like their nerves are exposed. And because of that, that tusk is the most sensitive tusk in the animal kingdom. It basically gives them the ultimate senses. They could sense changes in pressure, vibration, or temperature anywhere in the water around them. Not to mention they could use it as a weapon, but then again, that one's kind of obvious. It's literally a spear. In other words, their horn is basically magical, which is why they've earned the nickname the unicorns of the sea. I swear to God, they're real. And as always, follow for more facts.
Dark things Disney doesn't want you to know? Part 7. Today, let's talk about the abandoned Disney theme park, River Country. River Country Park opened in 1976, and it was the first water park at Disney World. And surprise, surprise, a lot of tragedy occurred at this park, which ultimately led to it being shut down. First off, an 11-year-old boy died after getting a bacterial infection from swimming in one of the pools. The bacteria attacked his brain and nervous system, which killed him. 2 years later, another tragedy occurred. This time, a 14-year-old boy died after coming off of one of the water slides, and the lifeguards didn't see him. And Disney didn't learn from this because in 1989, another boy drowned. A witness told the newspaper that the lifeguards were performing CPR incorrectly on him. The park closed its doors in November of 2001, and now it's just abandoned. And of course, urban legend goes that the park is haunted by the souls that have died there. Like for part 8.
I'm truly convinced nature picks favorites, and that thing is at the top of its list. Meet the snow leopard. These homicidal furballs are only found in the mountains of Central Asia, and they have more tools at their disposal than Bob the Builder. First off, they come stocked with a bite force that's known for breaking bones. They can also run 45 miles an hour. It's basically a torpedo with teeth. But none of that matters if, you can't see them. They're also considered to be the masters of camouflage. Scientists say they're basically invisible. That's how they got the nickname, the ghost of the mountains. Like if you're an animal and you can't see the snow leopard in this picture, you're cat food. I'll be honest, even if you can see it, you're still cooked. These bad boys can jump 49 feet. That's the farthest jump ever recorded in the animal kingdom. I guess their only weakness is falling off the side of the mountain like you saw in the opening clip. Psych! Super Cat here has been documented surviving falls of up to 400 feet. Why do I got fall damage and they don't? Moral of the story, if you're ever in the mountains in Central Asia, be careful. They have carnivorous ghosts there. And as always, follow for more facts.
Facts that you probably didn't know until now. A lot of us are used to taking flights that last anywhere from 2 to 6 hours, but did you know that the shortest flight in the world only lasts 57 seconds? A Logan Air flight between Scottish Islands Westray and Papa Westray only lasts 57 seconds and travels a distance of 1.7 miles. Like, bitch, I could run that. Another fun fact is one about elephants. Did you know not only do they hear out of their ears, but they can also hear out of their feet? Typically, to hear normal distances, elephants will open their ears like that and scan back and forth to hear. But to help them hear noises that are far away, they'll freeze, lean on their front legs, and that's how they hear. And lastly, we all know and love Pringles. Who doesn't love a good Pringle? The man responsible for creating the iconic Pringles can is named Frederick Bauer, but that's not the fun fact. The fun fact is that when he passed away, it was his dying wish that his remains be put in a Pringles can. His children honored the wish. They even debated over which flavor can they should put him in, and they settled on the original.
Perplexing Plot Twists, Part 1. In 2008, an Australian couple named Julian and Carolyn were kidnapped by a satanic cult. Members of the cult threw them in a van and drove them deep into the forest where they were stripped, blindfolded, tied up, and abandoned. Convinced that they would die, Julian suggested that the couple get married under the eyes of God and consummate their relationship. After a week of wandering through the woods, the couple finally made it back to their hometown. Julian was immediately arrested and found guilty of staging the entire thing.